Well, good morning, Unit 6. We're looking forward to a great conversation about a bunch of important issues. And you agree. Good. I'm glad that we're all in agreement that we're not talking about frivolous issues, but actually important issues. So that's excellent. My name is Tom Bonds, and I am a professor of education at Kansas State University. Welcome to these hearings. We're going to have a great conversation and really looking forward to it.
Hey everybody, Sean Arthurs. I'm just south of Alexandria, Virginia, history teacher and a lawyer. And I feel like I'm kind of obligated to ask you where on the hand you're located. That we all know. Okay, all right. Thanks, y'all. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with y'all in that part of the hand.
My name is Lawana Davis. I am a law professor at Cumberland School of Law in Birmingham, Alabama. And
we would like you to introduce yourselves.
Good morning. East Kentwood is very excited to participate. My name is Diana Begonovich.
My name is Jalen Baker.
My name is Keziah Mitchell, and our coach is Justin Robbins.
Thank you. We'll get started. Question 2 asks, President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. Do you agree or disagree? Why? What disagreements did the founders have about a standing army? And are they relevant today? To what extent should there be an international U.S. military presence? You may begin.
We agree with President Eisenhower's warnings and see the concerns stretching back to our nation's founding. George Washington, having navigated the Newburgh conspiracy and witnessed the dastardly deeds the British Army performed in the name of the King, voiced in his farewell address a similar aversion to a standing army to warn the young nation.
Echoing related concerns, Eisenhower speaks of a modern iteration that in the wrong hands, the standing army would foster a self-sustaining military-industrial complex, tying political funding and decision-making to the primary concern of profits for related companies and contractors.
Against the backdrop of the Cold War, Eisenhower explained that today the hope of free men remains stubborn and brave, but it is sternly disciplined by experience, expressing the necessity of a precarious balance in future investment in the American military alongside other domestic priorities.
In the post-Civil War era, the military-industrial complex has encouraged national tendencies. The ideological tensions of the Cold War gave rise to political figures such as Senator McCarthy as the world navigated a conflict of socio-political ideals under the prospect of nuclear war.
Today's large standing army would be a concern to the anti-federalists, who in Anti-Federalists 24 and 25 stated that they are dangerous to the liberties of a people. In Federalist 46, Madison explained the standing army should be no more than 30,000 troops, big enough to protect the country from external threats, but too small to act against the states or oppress the people.
This caution was reflected in the largely unprepared armies prior to the Civil War and on the eve of the Pearl Harbor attacks, as the preference for small standing armies reverberated across future generations.
Disagreement also extended as to who should possess the power to raise armies. Anti-Federalist 25 submits the power to raise an army should be shared to check the powers that come with it.
Federalist 74 also states that the president must be able to act quickly during times of war and unify forces under one person, while Anti-Federalist 74 insists that this would create a military king president in a compound of monarchy and aristocracy, the most accursed the world has ever witnessed.
These concerns persist in a different form today. While the standing army is not a threat to individual liberties of private citizens, it poses complex socioeconomic and cultural questions about our national identity and priorities.
Today's standing army recruits students directly out of high school, promising education, stability, and a chance to see the world. This recruiting draws on strong national messaging in a time of growing economic inequality when many young people have primarily less appealing alternatives.
The U.S. military's presence today is felt worldwide. During the Cold War, the US government heavily deployed troops overseas to preserve democracy across the world, and the following the 9/11 terrorist attack provided new justification to maintaining a large military footprint.
As a result, military spending in the United States outspans all of other nations. $732 billion on defense in 2019 alone. This is nearly 3 times the amount of China, the next leading country, and actually more than the next 8 countries combined.
We believe that strategically reducing U.S. international military presence would provide an opportunity to reallocate resources towards domestic issues Americans face daily. Issues such as education, food and agriculture, housing and community, and the increasing national debt could be addressed to improve living conditions and standards for citizens.
Thank you for your time, and we look forward to discussing these issues with you further.
Thanks, everybody. So let's jump in. Not too far from my house here in Washington, D.C., in Lafayette Square, there were a series of protests last summer. In one of them, as President Trump walked across the Lafayette Square, right just north of the White House, after the protesters were cleared, an American general, Mark Milley, he's the #1 general, he appeared in the photograph with President Trump. Do you think he should have appeared in that photograph?
I think the photograph definitely does hold symbolic power, and we do see in the fear in the anti-federalists was that the president would have too much military power. And this is something that we've seen with the Burr conspiracy when Aaron Burr had attempted to use the standing army to take over our new territory.
Going off of what Diane was saying about symbolic power, this is what Eisenhower feared would happen with the military if the military-industrial complex was to persist throughout coming generations, and in the future when the president would eventually gain more power if we go off the 9/11 AUMF bill. The symbolic power that the military holds and now politicizing it by using the general in coinciding with President Trump in the photograph was what Eisenhower feared and why he addressed the nation so late into his term.
Well, let me follow up with you then on that. So it sounds like you're a little bit skeptical, and you're talking about the anti-federalists are skeptical, and you're talking about Eisenhower's skepticism. When should a military official say no or not follow the orders of the commander-in-chief? Are there any times when you would officially say that should happen?
I think the powers would more so be checked by Congress because they do have the power to actually fund the military.
But what about in the heat of the moment there? You know, the president oftentimes, as you know now, does not seek approval from Congress. So what about in those instances where we don't have time there's no time for Congress to intervene? Is there ever a situation where we shouldn't follow?
Well, I think the only situation that would actually be necessary would be in a time where our homeland security is actually in danger. However, I don't since Pearl Harbor, I don't believe that there are any instances in which there was attacks on American soil that actually could have, well, other than 9/11, that actually could have perpetuated these sorts of things.
Also, I think it's important to point out that although the president does have the ability to rally troops in a more immediate sense, Congress still has to give approval in the end after a certain amount of time, and they do control the budget.
In President Eisenhower's speech, he discussed he said only a knowledgeable and intelligent citizenry can compel our mixing our military with our peaceful methods and goals. That's the words that he used. And so how do we create an alert and knowledgeable citizenry given some of the secrecy that the military uses to conduct its activities?
Well, you often see social media used as a platform to encourage these very divided tendencies in which it fosters this kind of military that we see today. However, I think we can use it for good as well. I think we can find a way to put some sort of platform that can appeal to young individuals who are our future, that can in turn teach us ways that we can peacefully deal with situations such as, if you see historically, our Marshall Plan.
I also think that the politicization of the military does not help in reaching these goals. I'd like to point out that the Biden administration currently has the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, has a $500,000 stake of stock holdings within Raytheon, which is one of the largest military industrial contractors in the world. So having the secrecy of the military and also masking that with the politicization and the polarization that we see within our nation today does not help inform the public at all, and really can push agendas that the public may not be so well versed on.
An increase in civic education starting at a young age can also help with this by by having our people more educated. It helps with us being more informed later on in life, and we choose our representatives. So if we choose representatives that are helping us to perceive all the information, it helps.
When is you mentioned the 9/11 use of force, Congress's use of force bill, but I'm curious what you think. When is the executive branch, when is the president able to use combat troops, and I mean troops by not just people, but also like missiles and things. When is the president's, in your view, authorized to take such combat actions without congressional approval? You mentioned attacks on our soil, that you would go along with that. Are there any other times when we need the president to have that kind of power? For example,
Specifically, the power to put out troops in other countries.
or fire missiles in retaliation, or for some move, by another country. Do you think that that's a wise thing for the president to have that kind of authority, or not?
Well, I think that UMF would give him a lot of authority to be able to do these things. I wouldn't necessarily agree with it because we're so apt to think about the actual weapons and money, but we never actually think about the individual rights we're putting in jeopardy, civilians that are going to be in danger. I mean, we supply over 70% of Saudi Arabia's arms, and they're and we have people in Syria who 22 out of 28 million of them need humanitarian aid, but we're not sending any of our military to do any peace promoting ideas in that area.
We also see this issue go back to the founding era, where the founders were worried about having a military king and giving the president too much power over the military in case of an insurrection.
Thank you very much, Unit 6. This is the national finals, and as it turns out at the national finals, we ask difficult questions, and you responded very well to those difficult questions. I think that you were the only group that mentioned, and I think it's a part of this question, the congressional use of fourth authorization, and And yet, even before 9/11 and before that declaration by Congress, the truth is the executive branch oftentimes uses military, flexes the United States military muscle in one way or another. And that's controversial. And I think as citizens, it's good to think through that and think about how much should the executive branch, how much authority should the executive branch have to just sort of to do take those kinds of actions without congressional approval. So I thought you did a great job. You had a lot of really solid historical evidence that you brought to bear on on some very difficult questions. And if everyone were as knowledgeable about the military industrial complex as you, no doubt President Eisenhower would be satisfied that what the citizenry would be well enough informed to check that power. So excellent work.
Yeah, thanks, team. I appreciate your time. This is, really wish we had more time to discuss, especially as we started towards the end. We were starting to dig into, like, the different priorities in putting military aid overseas versus using peace promoting efforts. And then, one of you suggested more that we learn more about more civic education. That's catnip to us, right? I mean, that's civic education teachers. You're just dangling that out there. We all big fans of that, having a more educated citizenry. And then I love the connection to Raytheon with the current secretary. Like, so there was an awareness of current events there. You're promoting civic education. You're teasing out some of the balances. So nice work. Enjoy. I think you just have one more presentation today, and then you can get a break to go talk more civic education. Thanks, y'all.
And thank you as well. I absolutely agree with my colleagues. You guys are well on your way to being part of the alert and knowledgeable citizenry that President Eisenhower was looking for. Good luck in your future competitions, obviously here, but also in the future as well. Take care.
I just want to thank your teacher and coach too. Thanks for giving your students and your school this experience.